scam calls, spam emails, fake speeding or parking ticket text messages. Heavy on the fake texts for me. Happens all the time. When I Google my name, all of these things are data brokers. Data brokers sell your data without your consent and make their money, selling your data for profit. I don't know about y'all, but to me, that's wild. Aura, the sponsor of this video, takes away the confusing and complicated process of removing your information from these companies. They do the hard stuff for you, but they also do way more. Aura is all-in-one digital security. In addition to removing your information from these companies, you get alerts if your personal information is found on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, 24/7 monitoring to keep your identity secure, a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more. What I found with Aura is that cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access sensitive information. That's why I chose them. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Aura does all of this for me, and I don't have to download several different apps just because a company couldn't keep my data secure. If you're interested, you can try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/sagesring. In those 2 weeks, you'll discover where your data is being exposed and sold. Man, the bravest animal, the one most accustomed to suffering, does not deny suffering in itself. He desires it. He seeks it out in person, provided that people show him a meaning for it, the purpose for suffering. Marco Favaro writes that Nietzsche here demonstrates the connection between grief and search for meaning. Pain is unacceptable and senseless in itself, and if you cannot avoid it, you have to find a way to justify it. You need to make sense of the chaos. The creation of a new identity symbolizes the volition to establish a meaning despite the loss and affliction. It is a reaction against the absurd. The creation of the Batman from Bruce Wayne's mind, from his soul, some stories might argue, is a reaction against the absurd. It is him making sense of the chaos, the trauma, and the pain that he went through that night, losing both of his parents. In Zdarsky's The Night, as he grows up, he is a lost, wayward soul, desperately seeking out the reason for his suffering. He harbors this irrational guilt for not being able to protect his parents, anger that no one was there to save him, and rage at the world and his city for allowing this to happen. Zdarsky's The Night has a young Bruce Wayne traveling across the world to train under different teachers of both body and mind. The one constant about Bruce that his many teachers note, that Alfred notes, the darkness that is inside of him, the fire that rages in the young billionaire, the intensity. In Mark Waid's Justice League of America run, at one point Batman and Bruce Wayne are separated. Their identities become split. Bruce becomes possessed by this very darkness. He explodes in anger when his car gets vandalized, threatening to break all the bones in a harmless criminal's body. In these nights, he gets overtaken by this anger like an animal, slowly losing his sanity because of this rage that he has nowhere to place. A rage that is eating away at his soul. He doesn't know why he is so angry. It is not death we fear, rather it is suffering. Suffering, the emptiness, the lack of being, the lack of meaning and purpose to our suffering, our death. Bruce fears that his parents died, that he is suffering for nothing. The creation of a new identity is a reaction against the absurd. That is the meaning he finds of his suffering, which allows him to grow from the experience. And so Bruce Wayne brings Batman to life. He dons the mask. There's the prevalent thought, for good reason, that non-literal masks exist only to conceal. With them on, we can be someone else. We use them to hide. Moreover, there's this belief that everyone who wears a mask, even you and I, the mask reveals more about the person beneath it than the mask itself. And in some cases that is probably true, that the mask is our actual essence, the real person. Nietzsche understands the wearing of masks, the extensive rhetorical play of disguise and dissimulation, also as a means of protection, as a kind of not just intellectual but instinctive reaction to the impositions of life to which the new philosopher feels especially exposed. We seem to be in need of masks in order to survive. The building up of an appropriate mask can be an important element of psychotherapy for someone who feels pathologically vulnerable. Though a mask is not a persona, Jung says that a persona is a protective coating for the soul that allows expression of one's interiority to others. He says that it is a necessity. We need a membrane between inner and outer if we are not to be overwhelmed or fall apart. With no front to face the world, we would be hopelessly vulnerable and our impulses would express themselves unacceptably, giving rise to aggression and alienation. As Batman's reach widens, his most popular stories include the Arkham series, the Nolan trilogy, The Killing Joke, and these stories don't really focus on Bruce Wayne. We all already know it, so we don't really get the origin story anymore. The Bat family is known, but not to a great extent. So Batman then, when considered, is stripped down to everything that Bruce doesn't really inform. The genius detective, the psychotic, vengeance-only brutalist, the cutthroat tactician of the Justice League. These become his core identifiers. When people first think of Batman, they think of these things. His obsession with the mission, with taking down his enemies, his anger, his brutality. These become the core of the character from a general view. Some writers have focused on that side of him. They've explored the lens of Bruce becoming the Mask. They focused on his obsession. I used to also think that Bruce Wayne was the Mask, but over time, I've come to kind of resent that. My favorite reading of the character now is the opposite, because it gives the character for me so much more depth. I think my biggest problem with this statement is that it strips Batman of his humanity, which is his most important trait. That anger, that darkness highlighted in the night, the fury that Wade's Bruce has, who is slowly losing himself to it, Batman gives Bruce Wayne a sense of purpose and direction. Batman is an outlet so that he does not drown in all of the negative emotions that fill his mind when he gets a moment. An outlet so that he doesn't act based off of the nightmares that haunt his sleep every night. Batman, with all the training, not just physical, but mainly the intensive mental conditioning, keeps all of that anger in check. It clears his mind, giving him the option to become this tactical genius. It gives him a tool to direct his rage. Bruce Wayne is incredibly emotional. He is filled to the brim with grief. The whole emotionless, logic-driven Bat is the balance he constructs within himself. He needs Batman to do that. Bruce Wayne needed the mask as a form of protection, protecting himself so that he doesn't drown in his own grief. And the inverse is also true. Batman cannot exist without Bruce Wayne. In Wade's JLA run, when the two identities are split, Batman, separated from Bruce, has no face under the mask. He has no identity. He is languid, barely moving, barely speaking, and docile. He isn't motivated by anything. He doesn't have a reason to do anything. And in other stories, Batman cannot be the true self to Bruce Wayne's mask, because without Bruce, there is nothing to temper Batman. There becomes no separation, no line between the criminals and the villains that he goes out to fight and himself. Batman ego looks at the Bat as a separate entity, as Bruce's fear that has been dormant until his parents were killed. However, his fear asserts that Batman is not a persona or a costume that can simply be cast off. He will always be a part of him. In the story, Bruce has to face down the Bat, face down his fear. As he is tired and has kind of lost his spark, he's lost his hope for the city. Bruce tries to quit being the Batman after a fearing criminal takes his own life right in front of him, and blames it on Bruce. In the past, he says he would call upon the undying spirit of his parents, which would usually fire him up with the hope that he needs. But in this story, his grief is too much. He is sobbing uncontrollably. He must heal himself from the inside out. And this is what manifests from his subconscious. Bruce asks Batman how he should carry on. So Fear, or Batman, suggests that he take over, which would ultimately turn him into something else. It would turn him into a killer. When he talks to Batman, he says that it was my force of will that molded you in this image, but I channeled your fury towards a purpose. I tempered your wrath. Left unchecked, your vengeance would be monstrous. This idea comes up again in Batman R.I.P., where without the influence of Bruce Wayne, Batman loses all of his inhibitions and becomes a brutal, violent entity. One without reason or logic, just rage. In Ego, Bruce, however, does realize that killing Batman would be, quote, committing suicide. He understands that Batman is not only a part of him, but it is him. Something that he has to grapple with and temper every day. Bruce Wayne informs Batman. It's Bruce that gives Batman the golden rule. We see what the Batman becomes without it. And I've always enjoyed the reading that Batman doesn't kill, not because he's afraid of what will happen if he does cross the line, or that he'll never stop, but instead because of how it connects him to his parents. It's his way of honoring them and honoring that promise. His father in particular, the Doctor, whom a young Bruce had seen patch up even crime bosses, instilled in Bruce the worth of human life, the sanctity of life, and thus his need to preserve it, because he is a symbol of hope. Writer Scott Peterson notes on the Bat, the trauma which created his obsession also generated in him a reverence for that most basic of values, the sacredness of human life. If he was not consumed with the elimination of crime, he would not be the Batman. And if he did not consider human life inviolable, he would not be the Batman either. Without Bruce Wayne, we eliminate his tremendous compassion for his enemies and for the people of Gotham City. Without Bruce Wayne, Batman doesn't save Dick Grayson, who he stopped from becoming another version of himself, possessed by anger, racked by grief. Without Bruce Wayne, Cassandra Cain loses her role model, her ideal. Without Bruce, what care does he have for the city, for a city like Gotham, that continuously rips his family away, that continuously hurts him? Why would he want to rehabilitate his enemies that try and destroy him every single night? Bruce informs all of the greatest parts of the Batman, his humanity and his empathy. In Zdarsky's The Night, there comes a point where Bruce, the narrator, is finally able to articulate his emotions. And he says that he can't shut his emotions off, that his heart is full of pain and anger, but that's because of love. The love he feels for his parents, the love he feels for Alfred, for Dana, for everyone brought down by evil men. He can never give that up. Quote, "So I use my love. It's fuel. I'll save everyone." And I thought that was really interesting, because we do talk about Batman and fear, and now Batman and hope, but how is it not love to want to save such a corrupt, grimy, decrepit city like Gotham? Every murder he investigates, every child he saves, that is love, and that comes from Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is the reason Clayface can show up to Batman's funeral and say that he truly felt that he mattered to the world, because Batman made him feel that way. He sacrificed himself for someone like Clayface. Nietzsche asks, what makes one heroic? To face simultaneously one's greatest suffering and one's highest hope. Bruce and the Bat fused together is what you get when suffering meets hope. You get this hero, tormented and obsessed, but tormented by an immense desire to see his world safe, to see a world that he didn't have. Through understanding of Mishima, Rilke, and Nietzsche's concept of masks, Graham Parks notes that the philosophers have come to a similar conclusion, that there is no true self behind the mask, that even behind the mask there is yet another one and another one. To ourselves, the dialogue we have with ourselves, these are still masks. One of Nietzsche's conclusions was that a person finds their quote-unquote truest self is through the coherence of all these different masks that we wear. Batman, Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy. Batman and Bruce are both masks, and both represent his truest self. They both help each other. They both need each other. But Bruce Wayne is not the mask.